How do you do, everyone? Welcome to the 17th annual Bellwether League Foundation Induction and Recognition event. We are glad you are all here. Ever wonder what's behind every successful healthcare organization? It's not magic. It's not the multiverse. It's not money, although that certainly helps. It's not tech, although that certainly helps, but it also can be very risky. If you've read the current edition of Leaders and Luminaries magazine on the BLF website, I think you all know the answer. It's people. You. This is why we do what we do. BLF reflects a life cycle of talent for one of the most essential and important professions and industries on the planet. Look at recent weather, shipping, and geopolitical events, as well as other events earlier this year for examples. 7 days ago, I saw a headline in Harvard Business Review that drives the point home. The headline was, "Supply chains belong at the top of a CEO's agenda." In fact, it's one of several headlines within the last month emphasizing the importance of supply chain. And it's why we do what we do. We started this organization 17 years ago to honor those near or at the end of their supply chain career and those who are no longer with us, but significantly pave the way for future generations. These are Bellwether honorees that we induct into the Healthcare Supply Chain Leadership Hall of Fame. We will induct 5 tonight, bringing the total to 148 in 17 classes. We then wanted to flip to the other bookend on the shelf, those at or near the beginning of their careers who are making noteworthy contributions to their profession, their organization, their industry, and are on pace to be a future Hall of Famer. These are the future famers we will honor. We will recognize 3 tonight, bringing the total to 42 in 9 future famer classes. We then decided to address the gulf between the 2 bookends, honoring those in the middle of their careers who have made and continue to make significant contributions to their profession, organization, and industry. We named this recognition after our first inductee, an educator who has written one of the seminal textbooks on supply chain management inside and outside of healthcare. These are AMER honorees that we will honor. We will recognize 2 tonight, bringing the total to 6 in 4 honoree classes. Finally, 3 years ago, we chose to address the prequel to future famers, college students pursuing degrees and careers in supply chain. We did this through our Collegiate Capstone Project that features college students teaming up with healthcare organization sponsors to research, share ideas, and develop potential solutions to specific challenges. So far, we have featured 4 projects, 2 of which were presented live earlier today during our Bellwether Leadership Symposium. You'll find all 4 posted on our website. One of our taglines is honoring healthcare supply chain leaders of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yesterday, by and large, represents the Hall of Famers. Note, however, that there are many Bellwethers still actively making a difference. Today, by and large, represents the AMER honorees, but this can also include Bellwethers and future famers. Tomorrow represents the future famers, who may someday earn AMER honoree recognition and or Bellwether Hall of Fame induction. We believe BLF is essential as we emphasize and reinforce 3 tenets. If you're at the beginning of your career, it's about looking forward. If you're in the middle of your career, it's still about looking forward, but more so about looking all around you within the supply web. If you're near the end of your career, or even fully retired, it's about looking back at a successful career and sharing your wisdom with those moving forward. BLF is essential not just for bestowing well-earned and well-deserved awards and recognition, but also for reflecting a service, motivating a mission, and appreciating the history of this important and vital function that ensures the healthcare system runs effectively, efficiently, and as expediently as possible. That's no easy feat, but you make it happen. Thank you to all of you. I'd like to recognize my fellow governing board members and operational advisory council members next. What I'm going to do is give their names, ask them to stand up, and I would ask that you would hold your applause until we've gotten all of them standing. On the board, I serve with Barbara Strain, chairman, and Mike Langloy, treasurer. And on the advisory council, I serve with Gary Rakes, chairman, Rachel Anderson, Ryan Burke, Fred Krantz, Jake Ronwald, Tom Harview, Jess Hurd, Tom Lubatsky, Carl Meyer, John Strong, Sue Tyke, and Mark Van Summeren. Please give them all a round of applause. Now I'd like to recognize the Bellwethers, AMR honorees, and future famers who are from earlier classes that are here tonight. We'll start with the earlier Bellwether classes. We'll have them all stand, and then you can clap for them. We'll move on to the AMR and then to the future famers. For the Bellwethers, we have a large group here. I'm going to read these down. If you would stand after I call your name. From the class of 2023, we have Karen Conway and Michael Gray. From the class of 2022, Tom Lubatsky and Sue Tyke. From the class of 2021, this was the second of our COVID years, Jake Ronwald, Tom Harview, and Gary Rakes, and Barbara Strain. From our first COVID year, 2020, the illustrious Fred Krantz. From 2019, Carl Meyer, Christine Russell from 2017, Jane Pleasance from 2015, and then our true veteran in the audience, Dick Perrin from 2014. That's a full decade ago. Give them a round of applause. Our earlier AMR honoree classes, we have two in the audience today. I'm going to ask them to stand. Regine Villain from 2023. And then Dr. Randy Bradley, our inaugural AMR honoree from 2020. Future famers. We have 6 in the crowd. Well, probably a little bit less than 6. From 2021, Bruce Radcliffe. From 2020, Jack Casella. From 2019, Sarah Henderson. From 2019, Jess Hurd. From 2018, Amy Chapa. And from 2017, Karen Kresnick. Please give them all a round of applause. I would also like to thank our hosts, the fine folks here at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Mark Kosfeld, he's the director of the Supply Chain Management Institute at the Lubar College of Business. He's been a generous and gracious host, along with the event planning team here at the Student Union. I know Mark is in the back. If he wouldn't mind standing, I don't know if there are any other faculty or students that are here. If you could stand for recognition. If it's just Mark, we'll give it all to Mark. A Hall of Fame typically honors people in the closing chapters of their careers, whether it's in retirement after a long and fruitful career or in recognition and remembrance of valuable achievements and contributions when they are no longer with us. Each year it seems another Hall of Famer moves on to eternity, and this year is no exception. Since our event last year, we lost 2 Bellwethers, one of whom we induct tonight. Ron Denton from the Bellwether class of 2024 and Bob Yokel from the Bellwether class of 2019. I'd like for all of us to remember them with a moment of silence. Thank you. Now I'm going to invite Barbara Strain, chairman of the Bellwether League Foundation, to the podium for her opening remarks. Barbara?
Notice I was very careful to go up the stairs. All right. That was a goal, never fall down. Thank you, Rick, for the great introduction, for the compliments you've given to our Bellwethers, Amers, future Famers, what we're doing with the college and university students. I want to also offer my welcome and thanks to them. What also makes us sort of function, and I want to thank Rick Dana Barlow for all he does for Bellwether as the co-founder, the executive director, the secretary, and any other sort of accolade we want to throw his way. So thank you, Rick. Also, it's really important that collectively we all work towards the mission of the Bellwether League, which is to identify and honor those who demonstrate leadership and influence on contributions to the healthcare supply chain, which helps to further and really see our vision come through, which is to identify and profile leaders who make healthcare delivery possible across the entire continuum, no matter what part you play in healthcare supply chain. So this evening, I want to bring up Mark Kosfeld from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He says, again, I got to get up. So we're following Mark's sort of lead here. When you come up on stage later, we enter on this side, we'll exit on that side. So a little instructional thing. So Mark is the Supply Chain Institute Supply Chain Management Institute at the Lubar College of Business here at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Mark?
Thank you, Barbara, for that introduction. Can I get a show of hands who is at UWM for the first time? All right, fantastic, welcome. I'm glad you can be here with us. UWM has a dual mission. We are a R1 research institution. We are also a Access University. The R1 Research Institution designation means that we are in the top 4% of universities in the United States in research. The Access mission means that we open our doors wider to more students seeking a college education, that life transformational college education that they can get here. That also requires us to have support for those students here on campus, and helping them graduate and earn that degree. 39% of our students are first-generation students. We have the largest population of military students here in the state of Wisconsin. 23,000 students across 86 countries currently attend UWM. We offer 214 degree programs. 74% of our graduates stay in the state of Wisconsin. And so that makes it very attractive to employers that come to recruit our students. Many of them have grown up here, and many of them are looking to stay here in the state of Wisconsin. For those of you in healthcare, that might be a few of you in the audience, UWM is Wisconsin's largest collaboration of nursing and public health through our Partners for Healthcare initiative. So turning my focus now to the Lubar College of Business, where I reside, the business school offers degrees in accounting, finance, HR, marketing, information technology, and of course, supply chain. We recently launched our new master's in digital supply chain that explores the technology needed for those future students and that they will encounter in their supply chain careers. So I encourage you to check that out if that is a fit for you or anybody that works for you. Our supply chain graduates get jobs in buying, demand planning, inventory control, production scheduling, transportation, and many others. They work for companies such as Amazon, Badger Meter, Briggs & Stratton, Charter Manufacturing, GE Healthcare, Molson Coors, Saputo Cheese, and many others. Here at the Supply Chain Management Institute, that allows us to connect with supply chain professionals here in the region. Our members have input into the curriculum. They have input into the research that we conduct here at the Institute, and they host events on campus to engage with our students. If you're interested in connecting with me on the Supply Chain Management Institute, be happy to do that with you after the presentation. So welcome to UWM, and thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the program.
Right, now I have the honor and privilege, our first keynote speaker that we've ever had at the event. And I wanted to introduce Dr. Randy Bradley, who's a global thought leader, educator, and calls to action all of us all the time, as was exhibited today during his moderation of our panel. So it's my honor and the Bellwether League's honor to invite Dr. Bradley to give our first keynote address.
That's it. The rest of you are just here for the coffee, right? I was always concerned when I saw the reception was from 5 till about 7 o'clock. I said, these people are either going to be wasted or gone. And maybe it's both. But nevertheless, we do have a mission and a job to do, so I'm here to do it again. I'm Randy Bradley. Pleasure to be with you. Thank you for sponsoring this event. Thank you to the board. Thank you to Rick, and I want to issue my heartfelt congratulations to all the honorees. It's a well-earned recognition to be part of this fraternity of healthcare supply chain leaders. I will not be with you long tonight, and I know usually when someone says that, that means they're going to be here a long time, but I was told I have 10 to 15 minutes, and I intend to use 12 and a half, okay? Don't hold me to it. But we'll see. But really what I want to do tonight, one, I'm concerned that I'm tethered to this podium because I'm not used to being tethered unless I'm at home. So we're going to do something different tonight. It's the only way I stay in town. But really what I want to do is when Rick and I were talking about this, one, he didn't tell me that you guys have never had a keynote speaker before. So the good thing for me is the bar is really low. You know, I feel sorry for the person who has to come next. All right, but the reality is this. I want to talk to you about a thought that I've had for some time. And by some time, I mean 2 days. Because if any of you know me, one of the things is this. I do not like to over-prepare. And what I mean by that is I'm always going to support what I'm saying with data. But I never like to come and give you something that's rehearsed. I believe your time is worth more than that. So what I usually like to do is I like to take time, I call it plain time, which I get a lot of that. That's where I do some of my best thinking. It's also where I come up with some of my worst ideas. But fortunately, you don't have to experience those tonight. Tonight, I have no ideas for you. I just have thoughts. And what I'm hoping is you're going to take these thoughts and you're going to find a way to actualize these thoughts. But one thought I want to start with is this. What if we had an industry that was ready but not yet able? And what do I mean by that? Meaning that we want to embrace today's supply chain, but at the same time, we want to envision tomorrow's supply chain. I believe we're ready, but I'm not certain that we're quite yet able. And some of you who had a chance to see some of the things that we talked about on the panel this afternoon, it was actually leaning into some of this. And so this is really more of a challenge as well as a call to action. And what I'm saying is this, when I look at conversations I've had with supply chain leaders, not just domestically, but around the world, the one thing that concerns me is a prevailing thought and sentiment for some seasoned leaders who said, it's not my job to fix the supply chain. It's for the generation after me. What if our parents and our grandparents took that same attitude and took that same mindset when they were preparing a country for us? And I want you to really think about it because it sounds good when it says, I'm close to retirement. And what I found is this, when you are there, that's your greatest opportunity to make the most monumental impact that you can actually make, because that's the moment where you empty it all. We have a tendency to sprinkle things out over our career. But when you come to the end and you see that next phase, the next stage of life, that is your opportunity where you do not pour out in a reserved manner. That's the moment when you just take the glass and you just dump it. And then the responsibility falls to those of us who are behind, those of us who are willing to pick up the baton. And it's like I tell my sons all the time, I can give you the tools, I can give you the resources, I can give you the method, but I cannot give you the desire to succeed. I cannot give you the will to persevere. And I'm not asking you to give that to the next generation. What I'm asking you to give them is what you worked so hard to earn, the impact that you think you've had, the legacy that you think you've left. What if I told you you're only in the 11th hour and your 12th hour is actually coming, but it's up to you to determine what that 12th hour looks like. So I've got a few thoughts that I want to leave with you. One, what have we been talking about in healthcare supply chains, or what are we currently talking about? Two, where are we now? Three, are we willing to be a better partner? And I'll explain that more. And then four, where do we need to go and how do we get there? And I've got maybe about 9 minutes left to cover that. And so I'm actually going to do that. So what are we talking about? Here are the things that I hear. I keep hearing about what we need is deeper integration with respect to data and technology. We need better alignment. And you heard today on one of the panels, I think Bruce eloquently stated, what we really need is to focus on the massive mess of data that we call meaningful, but I call meaningless. We have a cesspool of artifacts that we have been, I don't even know how we've been stitching things together, but maybe it's because we hope people would never look, or maybe we gave them something to hold their nose when they came into the facilities. But what we have and what we make decisions on, it's amazing that we have not been sued. Think about it. If you went into any other environment and they told you that I am going to perform a task for you that can be life-altering, not necessarily life-saving, but life-altering, but I'm going to do so with 25% of confidence in what I know, who would sign up for that? But we do it on a daily basis. And I am not here to judge. I'm here to challenge. I'm here to ask you, what role can you play as a supply chain leader? Because it's easy for us to look to the CIO. It's easy for us to look to the Chief Information Security Officer. It's easy for us to look to the Chief Analytics Officer, the Chief Data Quality Officer, and say that's someone else's job. And what I'm asking you to do is not to kick the can. What I'm asking you to do, I have firmly believed for some time, supply chain is and should be the seat of innovation in any and every organization. But when are we ever going to rise to that moment? Now, that's a paltry clap there. Not that I want it, but I get it. You're coming to life. We'll get there in a moment, okay? But I do appreciate the enthusiasm. I have too much fun up here. So the other thing that we keep talking about is AI connectivity, artificial intelligence. And for years now, I've said I do not like the term. What I prefer is augmented intelligence. We keep talking about the challenge we have with respect to talent, whether it's a talent gap, whether it's a gap of knowledge with respect to the talent we have. But what if my focus was really on how do I take somebody who really can't do the job and give them an artifact or an appliance that makes them seem like a superhero by augmenting what they know, giving them insights into things that they could never perceive because they don't have the years of experience, they don't have the exposure. There's a term that we use a lot in the aerospace and defense sector, and it goes something like this. People see from where they sit. And when I cannot change where you sit, I can change by whom you sit next to. And that's the way I need us to really start thinking about developing talent in our organizations. Let's think about cross-pollination, because cross-pollination will create the type of effect that you want that you really can't find in the marketplace. There are not enough people out here who are what we call purple people, where they have the technical and analytical skills, where they have the business savvy and they have domain context and they're experts with respect to that. So what you have to do is find a way to piece those two groups of people together to get the effect you want until you can find the people. And frankly, we don't produce enough of them in academia. Why? Because we are siloed as well. It is amazing we go to the most siloed places to try to find people who are hybrids. Think about that. How do you do that? We don't even know the people who are across the hall from us because they're in a different functional area. And there's very few of us who will reach across the aisle and say, you know what? This problem is too complex for me to understand. It's too complex for you to understand. So why don't we take a transdisciplinary perspective where it's not just multiple people looking at it through different lenses, but it's really us figuring out what has worked in your domain, it's what has worked in my domain, but yet we've yet to solve the problem. And then we come together to advance a solution, and we put solutions in the marketplace faster. That's where I ask you the question, are you willing to be a better partner? Because it takes that being a better partner. Let me help you with this. There was a study conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers in 2022. Actually, let me correct that. Alex Partners in 2023, different firm. And they said 90% of CEOs say their companies need to invest in AI in order to combat the various supply chain challenges. But when you look at the data, let's talk about the stark reality of this here. And I know people talk about generative AI, and I'm a firm believer in what is possible. I am just not a firm believer in what we're doing. Because from what I'm seeing is we're taking transformational capabilities and we're overlaying them on top of old world processes. In other words, we are getting worse faster. And as those of you who've heard me before, you've heard this analogy, it's lipstick on a pig going downhill. It's going to be an ugly mess really fast. We're finding out very quickly that to an artificial intelligence solution, platform, algorithm, or model, your data is always perfect, even though you know it's not. And when we say, well, we're going to put some humans in the process and we're going to minimize bias, let me help you. If you don't know how your models were trained, it is already biased. The bias is not introduced in your organizations. The bias is brought into your organization. You are bringing a Trojan horse into your environment with nothing in the belly of it. Think about that. And so what am I trying to say here? We have to understand that if I look across industries where there is a greater prevalence of utilization of generative AI, it is one in legal and professional services. They're at near the top of the list, second to media and telecom. And then if we look at healthcare, pharma, and medical products, if we put all of those groups together, guess where we fall, guys, across those top industries? Dead last in the utilization of generative AI, to the point to where only about 14% of organizations that make up that combined set of sectors are actually using generative AI on a relatively daily basis. Again, there's more talk, more hype, and more sell than there actually is traction. And why is that? Is it because it's not worthwhile? No, that's not it. We don't know what to do. And so let me help you with another way of thinking about innovation. Oftentimes when we innovate, we say, we have a problem, let's find a solution. But what if I gave you an approach that looks something like this? There's a capability there. I don't know what it is. I don't know what is possible, but I'm going to explore that. I'm just going to explore the capability. I tell people oftentimes when we start talking about the value conundrum, when we invest more and we get less, I say, think about it when it comes to the analogy of buying an automobile. Some of us like to ride better than others because to some it's just a means to get from one place to another. And some of us, yes, we still want to do that, but we want to get there in style. My whole point is this. It is a means to an ends, but it's a question of what type of end do you want? We don't all want the same end. We don't all have the same table stakes, so to speak. And so with respect to that, we have to envision the world differently, even than those you report up to. I do not believe in bottom-up correction. I'm not saying you should go to your C-suite and tell them here's how they run their business, but what I do believe in is bottom-up coercion. I tell people all the time, one of the things I learned as a consultant is this, two things. One, give away your best ideas for free. Why? Because if they could do it, they wouldn't need me. And if they could do it, they would already know it. And the fact that they didn't know it, and now that they do know it and they can't do it, now I'm much more valuable. The second thing that I've learned is this. Never tell a person they're wrong. Just show them a mirror. I believe the best consultants wear mirrors and not watches. Because what I want you to see is what you really are. Because you will receive that more than if I ever told you how your organization looks. And when it comes to being a better partner, let me help you this. If you are working with a supplier, never tell them the cost is too much because you just told them their product is inferior. Now, that's not what you intended, but it's all psychological. So what you want to do is you want to diffuse the situation by telling them this. I believe it is the best product. I have no problems with the pricing mechanism or model that you're using. It's just well beyond what I can do. Same point, different way, different psychological reaction. I have now diffused your ability to fight with me because you want to fight over price and I want to fight over fit. And what I'm trying to figure out is, can we actually partner together, not just work together? Let me help you with this. Let's take the port strike that we just saw. And trust me, we did not resolve this issue. We have kicked that can slightly down the road and we did it barefoot, which means we didn't kick it hard and we didn't kick it far. But the reality is this, I can go back to 3 years ago when there was a port on the East Coast that opened a brand new terminal, and right before that terminal opened, the ILA went on a strike against that particular port. Wasn't even a broad strike. It was heavily concentrated. Well, how do I know that? Because that was one of my clients. But we didn't have the wherewithal to see that it was planned, that it was timed in a point where that community of workers felt that they would have the greatest leverage. You have spent 5 years building something, and the moment you open, I walk away. So that means millions of dollars being lost on a daily basis on something that's beautiful yet idle. How do you like me now? That's essentially the sentiment of that. And when I look at what we just saw up and down the East Corridor, it reminded me of what I saw 3 years ago when we had an opportunity to recognize this. Go back to the West Coast port shutdown during COVID. You're telling me we didn't learn from that and we didn't get ahead of that for this one here? Of course we learned from it. What did we learn? Not to let them strike. Well, how do we stop them from striking? Well, I don't know. We just make it, we place the argument that they can't afford to go without wages. Try them. Because what they're betting on is this: it will cost you more than it will cost them, and you will give in first. And they are right, because you have no option but to get products moving to the places they have to go, because other people walk out of your lives who are paying your salaries. And what they figured, your salaries are greater than theirs. And you're less willing to lose yours than they're willing to put theirs on hold. Because the reality is there's a greater demand for them than there is for you. You get my point? What am I saying? We need to stop nickel and diming each other. We sit across the table from each other in conferences. We share coffee together. We have cocktails together. We have desserts. We talk about each other's families. And then when we come into a negotiating room, all of a sudden we became adversary. There's no need for that. We are all here for a common goal, or so I thought. And if that's not the case, then maybe I didn't choose the right partner. I'm just asking you a series of questions tonight to help you think about things differently. And I'm going to close by this one last point. How many of you have the Domino's app on your phone? You can go ahead and own it. Go ahead and own it, Chris. Go ahead and own it. Go ahead and own it. I'm not asking you if you use it. I'm just asking you if you have it. I am not judging you, man. This is a judgment-free zone, except for the back room. They judge you back there. Here, you feel it. You should, man. I can see how they're looking at you. It's like, I can't believe this guy, man. Domino's? But the whole point is this. I've talked about Domino's before, but I told Rick I was going to tell you a little different story, sort of what we talked about today. Let me tell you the rest of the story. Most people think that the Domino's app was really about customer insights, that it was about visibility, that it was about transparency. What if I told you only one aspect of that was true? It was about visibility, but not from a customer-facing mechanism. That was something to thwart what we were seeing, which is supply chain theft. And we're not talking about theft in stores. What we're talking about is that when drivers went out to make a delivery, the store operators had no visibility in terms of where their people were, and people were being accosted and robbed, and we could not pinpoint where it took place. We don't know the route that they took. So Domino's actually created what you now call the pizza tracking app. It was actually to secure the supply chain. Interesting. And then they had this unintended benefit of realizing if we have access to certain pieces of information, what if we backed it up just a little bit and looked at not just when they left the store, but from the time that the order actually came in. And we gave that information to Chris. And Chris might hate our product, but Chris is going to love the experience. And it's the experience that keeps Chris coming back. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you got a good deal, but you hated the experience and you said, I'm never going back to do business with them? Because that's a lot of what happens in healthcare. And so what I'm asking you to do, change your perspective, change your lens, and ask yourself, how can I create a frictionless, less adversarial process? And as I'm on this topic of supply chain thefts, what if I told you that just in the first half of the year, we had approximately 1,600 cargo thefts in the U.S. 1,600. And what if I told you it was primarily situated in 3 states? California, Illinois, and Tennessee. Now, what do they all have in common? Major thoroughfares for transportation and logistics. What if I told you that the theft wasn't just necessarily happening on the road, but what if I told you the primary area of theft is not at the truck stop, but is right in your yard? When that truck pulls up into your distribution center, pulls up into your warehouse facility, and we allow it to sit idle because we don't have the people to unload it in a timely manner, and no one's securing the yard, no one, going back to Under Armour days, who's going to protect the house? We're not. And they know it. What if I also told you that when you go down this route of electronic bill of ladings, and when you think cargo theft has nothing to do with cybersecurity, what if I told you you're wrong? What if I told you that the freight forwarders and the freight brokers that you use actually will go out and find you credible entities who have been in business for nearly 5 years, who have at least 25 trucks that they can put on the road, and who have had no show cause issues with delivering? What if I told you that they were going to transport 10 of your loads with no problem, but your 11th load is going to fully disappear, and the next day they're going to go out of business? What if I told you that? And then what if I told you that's a true story? When the people who want what you're trying to get play the long game, and we are reactionary, when they plan years ahead to steal your 11th load in 2023, and you didn't even know they existed, you vetted them, and how would they know? Oh, it's simple. Because they're going to compromise your email credentials, not to send you spam, not to ask you crazy questions or send you to porn sites. They want to create a treasure trove of insights about what's moving, when it's moving, and when it makes sense to strike. And yet we in supply chain, what if I told you this is under your purview? but you can't do it alone. You have to work with your chief information security officer. You're the one who are vetting suppliers. You're the one vetting vendors. You're the one vetting transportation mechanisms and modes. And yet we're the ones who know the least about the tactics. And so those who know the tactics sit on another part of the house. And much like those of us in our towers in academia, we don't talk to them. They don't help me. I don't help them. And I get that I'm generalizing. But the reality is, if we were to take a show in hands, it's probably happening like that in most of our organizations. So Randy, where does that leave us? It leaves us in a couple of places. One, in 2021, I believe, 2019, I believe, I was giving a talk, and I talked about how do you actually thrive in a dynamic and volatile work environment. And there were 4 characteristics that I said that a leader, a future supply chain leader would need. And one I said is we have to be surveyors. We have to know the landscape. The landscape is not just what's happening within our system. It's not just what's happening domestically, but it's what's happening globally. Because the part that I didn't tell you about the cargo theft is that it's not just a small group of people. These are actually syndicates. Many of them are international syndicates that tie into other types of things. And so if I'm not watching this, because it's unrelated to what I do, then I'm not going to see it coming when it hits my organizations. The other thing I said we have to do is we have to be purveyors. We have to be able to tell the story in a more articulate manner, and then we have to have sound effect. When the baseball game is on, it's important, extremely important. Help him out, help him out. That's shameful on Regine. She's watching the game and just tossed you her phone, didn't she? I saw it. I got your back, man. Got your back. You can't make this stuff up, man. You just have to roll with it. Just roll with it. I get it. I'm going to go. It's okay, man. It's all right. It's Monday Night Football. It's all right. I think it's Monday. I don't know. What is today? It's the day Monday? Okay, good. Then the next thing we have to do is we have to be aggregators of talent. And what I mean by aggregators of talent, I want to leave you with 2 thoughts relative to this. What if we had the same level of interest and place the same level of emphasis on sponsoring supply chain talent as we do when we sponsor MD talent? Now, some of you won't get that until tomorrow, but let me make it plainer. When you look at many of your physicians in your organizations who are not naturalized citizens and require sponsorship to work in the U.S., I am appalled at how many healthcare organizations I come up against who say, we sponsor talent if they're clinicians. But I thought supply chain professionals were essential workers. So we have to do a better job of holding them accountable for what they told us when they needed us. And now that we're not on the front page, do they need us less? No, they just talk about us less, or at least in a positive way. So my whole point is, if we can sponsor clinicians, we can sponsor supply chain professionals. And if you say, how do I get ahead of a lot of other industries? That's one way that you do it. Because right now, primarily only the tech industry are actually sponsoring. And we have some who have a lot of other avenues in which they can do it, but you can get some of the best talent if all you do is fight differently. And then last but not least, I want us to stop trying to be weather people. Predicting and almost always being wrong. But what I much rather you do is be a weather satellite. Look at what's brewing. Look at what's contributing. And then you know what's going to happen. You know when it's going to happen before it ever actually happens. And if we do that, we can create the healthcare supply chain that our patients, our constituents, and all of our other stakeholders deserve. Thank you very much for your time.
He can follow instructions. Really what Rick did is, because we started earlier, Randy could sort of really get the messages home. So that was exciting, and thank you so much, Randy. So now it's time to start the award parts of our ceremony this evening. We're going to start with the future famers, and we've been able to get most of all of the nominators for each of the awards to come, or they planned and sent a designee. So they're going to come up over here, they're going to say a few kind words, they're going to introduce them, and then I will be over here to meet you and to give you your pen and a plaque and award. So that's how this sort of process will work. So let's get started. I first want to introduce Janie Ott, who's the Vice President of Spend Management at the University of Kansas Health System, to introduce our first future famer. Janie.
My friend Karen Kresnick's telling me, straighten out that name badge, girlfriend, so I got it. So this is a big moment for me for sure, but it's a big moment for Angie Bruns. So Angie is on our team at the University of Kansas Health System, and one of her colleagues on her team says she shows up every morning carrying a cup of coffee that's taller than she is. So when she comes up here, you'll get that a little bit. And when I thought about everything I wanted to try to convey in 2 short minutes, you know, we talk about people, processes, and systems, but I'm really just going to focus on the people part because Angie is a people person. She is a selfless leader, and she chooses joy every single day. So while she's carrying that cup of coffee, she chose joy when she woke up that morning. And it's for her team, it's for her patients, it's for our supplier community. Whatever comes across her desk in that moment, she is all in it to win it. And, you know, I just got to thinking about how big of a moment this is for Angie. And I just couldn't help but kind of take a little bit of it because for me, this will always be one of the biggest moments of my career, getting to share this with you. So you can come on in.
Thanks, Janie. And if you haven't noticed, not only do I love coffee, but I also love pink. So Janie had to incorporate that too. So kudos to Janie on that one. I first of all just want to say congratulations to all of the other 2024 honorees, and then a huge thank you to the Bellwether League Foundation. This is beyond words. I remember telling Janie when she shared it with me, I said, I don't know if I have any words, like I'm kind of shocked. And I still don't have any words, but I want each and every single one of you to know how humbled I am standing here and how truly honored I am as well. Thirdly, for all of the people who I have had the absolute privilege of leading in my decade, a little over plus, this is all for them as well, because I wouldn't be here without every single one of them. So as I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you all, really my personal drive and mission statement in life is helping people achieve the unachievable. It's all about inspiration for me. And there was 3 people that stuck out into my mind in particular that I wanted to give just a little bit of kudos to. One was not able to be here tonight, but his name is Brian Flannery. Brian was one who was by my side right out of college, and I'm a very big believer that every single individual coming out of school, coming out of a different career, needs that mentor and needs that leader, and Brian was that for me, and he still to this day is that for me as he works on our team. Today he left and he came back. And as I thought of each of these people, I also associated a word with each of them. And the word that I think of when it comes to Brian Flannery is the word faith. And then the second person you already saw is Janie Ott. And when I think of the word that just comes to me every time I think of Janie, it's the word hope. Because Janie came, and what you could see in her face and what she shared with every single one of us when she joined our health system in 2019 was hope. And in supply chain, every single day, we need to lean into hope. And some grace, I think, sometimes too. But Janie instills hope in every single one of our team members, and every single day, she practices joy. And we are the team that we are because of her being a selfless leader, being the leader who cares, being the leader that will drop anything to pick up a phone to call you. And every single person in their lifetime deserves an amazing, great leader. And she just so happens to be that for me. And I'm truly blessed to have had that so young in my career. And then the last individual is my husband, Nate Bruns. And the word I give to him is love. He is my biggest cheerleader. He listens even when I know he doesn't know all about supply chain. He still listens. He's learned a lot today, I feel like, though. And he is more than I could have ever hoped and wished and dreamt of. And he is equally one of the best father to our 2 little girls as well. And so I give him a majority of this too because he's done nothing but been by my side and inspired me and truly helped me be the dreamer that I am, and I try to instill to my team every day. As I end with you all, I just want to say thank you again, and it is my absolute honor to be a part of this prestigious group, and I cannot wait to contribute even more alongside you all and learn from you all well into the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Angie. So now I'd like to call up Rand Ballard, the Chief Customer Officer at Vizient, who will now award the next Future Famer.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about the next candidate, okay? What's that? Too much beer? Thank you. I love my table, okay? Chico Manning. First off, do you know how Chico got his name? Chico and the Man. His mom loved Chico and the Man. Is that right, Chico? Absolutely. Thank God she didn't love Lassie. Be a different name, okay? That's what I'm saying. And you guys may not know this, but he has a wonderful military career. He got into the United States Naval Academy. It's very hard to get in there. In fact, the only place in the United States that's harder to get into is West Point. If you can't get in there, you go to the Naval Academy. But not only that, he graduated from the Naval Academy. So I know how hard it is to get in the academy. You have to have a congressman or U.S. senator nominate you. You have to be a 4.0 student. You have to be an athlete. And he chose the Marine Corps, okay? That's an amazing thing. That's a true American for those of us that have served, and it's truly a great thing. And he's a Disney annual pass holder. That's kind of strange. I talked to his CEO, Jim West. I said, Jim, what do you have to say about Chico? He said, I would be there. I got a haircut appointment, and I got a wedding of a 5th cousin, I think, he said. It was very important to him. But on a serious note, Jim said Chico's the best employee that he has, and he's just absolutely wonderful in everything that he does. Even though he loves his strawberry acai lemonade from Starbucks, which is a little bit strange. I don't know about that. Chico has the greatest tender heart that you could imagine. He was an Army brat, served in a lot of different places or followed his dad. But basically, he had a single mom. And that changed him somehow, and his heart for giving. And every single charity that PIH is involved in, he does those great things. And we are blessed in supply chain to have Chico take the road less traveled, as Robert Frost said, because he chose a career to give back into healthcare. And I just love him. He's just a great human being, and I'm honored to introduce you, Chico, and you're just the ultimate, so thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Really appreciate that intro, Rand, and I know I wouldn't be here today without your endorsement. You spoke of Jim West. Everybody needs kind of mentors, and Jim has been my mentor since day one at PIHL. So, as Rand mentioned, I learned a long time ago about servant leadership, right, in the Marine Corps. You eat last, right? So every Marine eats. And single mom growing up, my dad was great, right? My dad did the right thing, went back to Korea in between Vietnam tours, and kind of did right. But eventually things didn't work out. Raised by a single mom, kind of understand the socioeconomic concerns everybody has, and have spent my life when I'm able to kind of give back. To be honest, and Rand didn't mention it. He did mention a lot of specifics about me, but I always tell people, they always say, "How did you end up in healthcare from PepsiCo?" Right? That's a big leap for those of you that are in the industry outside of healthcare. And so my two children were born at the hospital I go to work every day, 6 years before I even knew there was a job for me there. So when it really came down to the decision, I remember Jim West at the interview, he sat there and he said, "Hey, so tell me why." And I told him, I said, well, I had never been home on a Tuesday in my kid's life because I had a full-time travel job at PepsiCo when they were born. And he looked at me and he said, "I guarantee you'll be home on a Tuesday." And ironically, today's Tuesday, so I get that. And he says, "You'll only not be home on a Tuesday if you choose not to be, if you come work for PIH Health." And he has held true to his word. I'm so glad I can give back to the organization, the community, the vocation I've known for almost 30 years. And I told Rand earlier today, and Brian Hartman, I pinch myself every day when I go to work because I am in the job I want to be in the location I want to be in, and I feel like the community, the organization, and the people that we serve realize that. So thank you very much for this great honor, Bellwether, Vizient. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. For our last Future Famer Award, I want to introduce Jeff Anderson, the Vice President of Payer and Market Strategy at the University of Kansas Health System.
Good evening. Now, while you guys were up here, just in case your phone's not working, Salvi hit a home run and the Chiefs are up 7-0. Tonight, I have the honor of introducing Corey Schmidt as a future famer. Corey, at our health system, on a day-to-day basis, runs our Central Links Services network, spanning 30 hospitals across Kansas and Missouri. Corey is a major reason our network has been so successful and continues to grow. He is directly responsible for the network's excellent customer satisfaction and for that the consistent high performance of the network. So yes, Corey has a strong grasp of the nuts and bolts of supply chain. In fact, I consider Corey a supply chain expert. But what Corey has learned to do is he has learned how to think strategically with executives. Specifically, Corey is able and willing to look at a situation, think about a situation, and question what could be or maybe should be in the future. Randy touched on this earlier this evening, this strategic curiosity that I strongly encourage Corey to maintain throughout his career. It is clearly one of his strongest assets, this strategic curiosity. Our health system is fortunate to have Corey Schmidt as part of our team, and tonight we congratulate you, Corey, as a future famer.
I'm going to be brief for Karen. I just want to thank my wife, Allie. She's my biggest supporter. Jeff and Janie and Doug and their leadership at the University of Kansas Health System, believing in me starting CLS 3.5 years ago, kind of putting me in that spot and seeing what happens. And two of my directors at other organizations, Tyson Allen, really got me into healthcare supply chain. And Margaret Crouch was the one who really let me use that strategic thinking and let me do whatever I wanted to do in distribution and logistics at Liberty Hospital. So when I look back, that's where I feel like I grew the most, and then came to KU almost 8 years ago. Really just thank you all. This is a very honored to receive this award.
Thank you, Corey. All right, now we're on to our AMR Awards. Those are in the sort of mid part of their career, as Rick explained. So I'd like to bring to the stage Laura Latham, the Senior Vice President of Spend Management Delivery at Vizient.
Thank you so much. I really have the distinct pleasure tonight to have the opportunity to introduce our first AMR Award awardee for the evening, Amanda Chawla. I first met Amanda as part of the Strategic Marketplace initiatives, where she immediately impressed me as someone who was not going to settle for the way we've always done things, and as someone who is going to continually push us all to be better. She challenged the status quo, she asked insightful questions, and she listened with curiosity. And then she created momentum for us to move forward. When you meet Amanda, you are immediately impressed by her intellect, and then her drive, and then you are swept up in her bias for action. I was so impressed to see a young leader, especially a woman, assert herself with such confidence, far more than I had as a young supply chain leader 15 years earlier. And if I'm honest, it was equal parts intimidating and inspiring. This is the same way she leads her team at Stanford, pushing her partners, her leaders, and her colleagues to rethink their approach with a focus on integration and alignment. Her efforts have led to unprecedented results. And while we are here to recognize her excellence and impact, we are also here to recognize her broader contribution to our industry and those around her. Amanda has spent her entire career working to leave her corner of healthcare better than she found it. When I asked a dear friend of both of ours, Jane Pleasance, to help add to my comments for tonight, she said this: her list of professional accomplishments is long, but she is also a mom, a wife, and until recently a student, a role model to others, a respected leader in both her own organization and our industry, and carries a significant workload at Stanford. Despite all these responsibilities, she continues to give back to the industry by leading ARM, being a mentor in SMI's Advancing Women Leaders program, co-chairing an SMI council that has set the bar high for all others, and is constantly giving of herself in so many ways. Amanda, on behalf of the entire Vizient team, we are thrilled to extend our warmest congratulations to you on receiving this prestigious award. This remarkable achievement is a testament to your exceptional skills, dedication, and unwavering commitment to excellence in the field of healthcare supply chain management.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for completely embarrassing me and the Vizient team. But seriously, I look at this room and I think about all of the amazing individuals and leaders that we're following. And it's an honor and it's a privilege to be here. I don't do well with recognition, so I apologize in advance. But I just want to say thank you. My goal here is to strive to lead, to make it just a tad bit better than the world we entered, to make that tad bit of difference for our children's, for our teams, for one another. And as I think about kind of why healthcare and what it is that we do, I've worked on the clinical side, the operations side, and obviously supply chain. And I say it's a people business. We are in a business, and everything we do is centered around people. Whether it's our team members, whether it's our colleagues, whether it's the healing hands we're serving, whether it's our partners. And at the end of the day, it comes down to relationships. And so one of the things that I will share with you that I love is really about the heart. The heart is not the strongest muscle in the body. Imagine that, right? But it is the most vital. And I think that's the impact that we can have as leaders to one another, to the teams we serve, to the families, to our friends, and so forth. And that's why I love what I do. And perhaps it's also about how I was raised. So I want to think about my parents, who worked extremely hard. We were immigrants. I was 5 when I migrated over here to the U.S., and I didn't have aunts, I didn't have uncles, I didn't have cousins. It was just mom, dad, sister, brother, and me. And being the oldest, we had a whole lot of family values. And one of those values was the most important thing is to take a moment and be there for one another. And I think that's one of the values that I tried to lead with. So with that, just want to say thank you. And also, as I look around the room, I look at Jason. I want to call you out, Jason. You have been such a great friend, such an amazing colleague over the many, many years, and you've inspired me. I look at others in the room. I look at Randy. I look at Nancy. Oh my God, I can probably name somebody on each one of these tables here, but I want to say thank you for your inspiration and thank you for your leadership.
And now I'd like to call up Jack Fleischer, the retired Vice President, Procurement and Strategic Sourcing, New York Presbyterian Hospital.
Good evening, everyone. As when you get as old as me, you got to have notes so you don't forget things. So it is my honor to introduce the second AMR Award winner for the 2004 class, Dr. Anand Joshi. I met Dr. Joshi, or I've known him for almost 21 years now, and we met on my very first day at New York Presbyterian Hospital. He was a consultant working for McKinsey at the time. Please don't hold that against him. And I had just started as the Vice President of Procurement and Strategic Sourcing. From the very beginning, though, after the first week or two of knowing him, I knew there was something really, really special about this young man. So much so that 6 months later, I hired him as the clinical procurement director for the hospital. And for the next 10 years, we worked together, changing the face of procurement and strategic sourcing and days and nights in New York City. So I planned on telling you about all 10 of those years and going through them all chronologically, but then I met Rick Barlow, who gave me the 2-minute warning. So instead of doing that, I'm going to tell you 3 things that stand out in my mind about Anand and why he's a man at the middle of his career, but at the top of his game, which is what this award is all about. So first, he is a complete visionary. What do I mean by the word complete? Well, he not only has a vision, let's face it, everybody in the room who's involved in healthcare supply chain has a vision. It's the cost of admission for the jobs that we're in. And having a vision is a requirement, but it's not enough. In addition to having a vision, this man puts flesh and bones and heartbeat into these visions and makes them come alive. You've seen so many visions that never get off the ground, the songs that never get sung, but he won't allow that to happen. And then the third thing about being a complete visionary, and the most important thing, I think, is that he can sell it to other people. And he is a master at that. Selling it to other people is really the key, because we interface with so many people, whether it's administration, clinical thought leaders, world-class doctors. He can sell it to them all. And one great example of that is the people that he would recruit into the organization. They would interview with him, come into my office, and they would be so charged up about the vision that Anand told them. Sometimes it was actually true, but he really was great at selling that vision. So second is, I know it's hard to believe, but I'm about 25 years older than Anand. And I was amazed after the first year of working with him at how consistently I learned things almost every week from him. It'll sound like a cliche right now, but he was the first one that really reinforced the phrase, "Don't let perfect stand in the way of good, Jack." And if you've ever worked, and many of you do today, work in an academic medical center, perfect can be an elusive thing. Really, really good from where you stand today is what the goal was. And if you strive for perfect, you're going to chase your tail a lot. But striving for really, really good was what he was all about. And then finally, the third thing about him that really struck me continually is that in many instances in many of the meetings we were in, he would be the smartest guy in the room. If you look at his credentials, he did his undergraduate work at Harvard, he got his MBA from Columbia, he got his MD from Columbia School of Physicians and Surgeons. Just a brilliant guy. Did a couple of years with McKinsey as a consultant on device companies and academic medical centers. He was the smartest guy in the room. But somewhere along the way, he learned that little trick of just not missing the opportunity to shut up and listen. And in that listening would come moments of cooperation, collaboration, mutual appreciation. I frankly was, I wasn't as comfortable as he would be with world-class physicians, but it was just an amazing thing to watch. So those are just three of the qualities of Anand, and I think he, as I said before, is really a man who's at the middle of his career, but at the top of his game. So I hear Rick's music playing in the background, so I've used up more than my 2 minutes. Oh wait, or maybe that's Rand's phone playing. But is he awake, Rasheen? Anyway, I don't want to leave the stage though without thanking my partners from Vizient, including Rand, who nominated Anand and allowed me to be a small part of this presentation. It really is a special treat for me. So, without further ado, I will introduce Dr. Anand Joshi.
Thank you, Jack. And in life, I've had to follow Jack not only in my career but here on stage, and he sets a really high bar everywhere he goes. So thank you, Jack, for those really kind remarks. I hope to do them justice. I also feel like there's going to be Oscar music playing in the background, so I'm going to be quick with my thank yous. But just first, a public service announcement. Much has been made about my medical degree, but to put everything in perspective, I graduated about 30 years ago. So if there is a medical emergency in the crowd over the next 2 hours, you're in better hands with Dr. Bradley or Chico or others than me. So I just want to make sure everyone is looking to me if there's an issue. I also want to congratulate all of the award winners from today. I know the Bellwether winners are to be announced, the future famers, and then Amanda as well. We've actually never met, despite us being in this profession. She's been doing her thing on the West Coast. I've been on the East Coast. But really inspirational to hear everything that you've done. I want to share one anecdote because in some ways it very much closely ties to sort of the experience of receiving this award. It was sometime in, I think, July when the awards were announced, and I got a ton of congratulatory messages from peers and colleagues, suppliers that I'd worked with for years, and then Burgeth, who's here. I saw her earlier. Burgeth, who's here, announced it in my leadership meeting, and I would say the reaction was sort of ho-hum. I think part of it is I haven't done a great job sort of telling people about the Bellwether League and sort of what it all means. But I let it pass. I said, listen, I can't make a big deal about it. I won the award, but so be it. I think it was about a month later, Amanda hosted, I think it was a webinar on augmented intelligence or artificial intelligence hosted by Vizient, and it had a number of individuals from my team joined and listened in, and were truly blown away by what you talked about. And so in the next staff meeting, and I still remember this, it was Randy, one of the up-and-comers on my team. He said, "Anand, I didn't realize you earned the same award that Amanda had. Like, that's amazing." And so again, I got the props. I got the props I was looking for riding on your coattails, Amanda. So I appreciate that. And I'm still now known as the person who's won the same award as Amanda. So just a few more thank yous. I would be remiss to not highlight something that's been talked about here around talent. So I do want to recognize my team. I've had a privilege of working with just an unbelievable set of really dedicated, really intelligent, and inspirational folks on my team for the 20 years I've been at NYP, past and present. And I remind them every day, whether it's a recognition for myself or for our department, that it is really just all a reflection of all of their collective work. And so again, I want to make sure I recognize and thank them. I do want to thank the bosses I've had in my career, starting from the very first, Jack Fleischer. Again, he set the bar incredibly high for me in the 10 years he was at NYP, and I've been there now just a little bit over 10 years, and I'm still trying to achieve those levels of success and engagement that he was able to inspire just starting out there. And then finally, want to thank a lot of the supplier partners that I've worked with over the years, many of whom are here. Those relationships are critical, and sometimes we get caught up in thinking we're working with companies, but the reality is we're working with people. And again, there are a number of people here in the room who I've worked with over many companies, and yet they're the same people who I know I can call on to give solutions and advice in really difficult situations. So want to thank the supplier partners that are here. And then finally, my Vizient team members. I've been very lucky to have tremendous support from Vizient with 4 or 5 on-site team members. And Burgeth, you're the very best of them over the years, and I appreciate all the support that you give my team each and every day, and obviously in the nomination for this award. And then last but not least, I do want to thank my family. They couldn't make it out here to join me, but again, thanks to this award, I was able to finally explain to my teenage daughters what I do for work, and again, they're certainly going to enjoy the video that I know Burgeth you're taking, and again, I truly appreciate it. So thanks everyone for the award.
Great words. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to introduce Rick Barlow, who's going to come up and introduce the next award winner. Rick?
Since inception, BLF has inducted Hall of Famers with backgrounds that may span an entire career at a single organization or multiple organizations within a single industry segment, or even multiple organizations within multiple industry segments. Some of our Hall of Famers spent their entire careers in one segment and at one organization. Others, multiple segments and at several organizations. Few, however, have spanned multiple segments and several organizations up to all, if not all, 7 segments we honor. Have you followed the math in all of that? Our first inductee tonight for the Bellwether class of 2024 is one of those few who has tapped into 6 of 7 segments. I consider him our 2024 Renaissance man. I first met Ron some 3 decades ago when he allowed me to interview him for this publication. Now, this publication is more than 30 years old. The paper isn't yellowed, so you know the quality was right there. And not only is Ron in this publication right here on the cover, but another of our inductees tonight is in this publication as well. And if you'd like, after this event, I can show you the annotated pages. Ron was very, very helpful in me very early on in my career. So he was a future Hall of Famer, helping someone just starting out in his career. But you're going to be able to read a little bit more about Ron and his many achievements and contributions on our website. But I do want to share a little known fact about Ron that his wife Susan shared with me. Kentucky may have had a famous colonel who was a master with poultry and a special secret blend of 11 herbs and spices. And if you read my vintage voice column last month, you'll know who that is. But Kentucky also has another, perhaps lesser known colonel who wasn't into poultry as much, but he was proficient at procurement and purchasing. Try and say that 5 times fast. Yes, not only is Ron Denton now a Hall of Famer within the healthcare supply chain industry and profession, but on September 24th, 1984, that's 40 years ago, Martha Lane Collins, then governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, commissioned Ronald Denton as a Kentucky colonel. Now, this is the highest title of honor bestowed by the governor of Kentucky in recognition of an individual's noteworthy accomplishments and outstanding service to the community, the state, and the nation. Listen to this. The Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels represents Kentucky's ambassadors of goodwill and fellowship around the world. Ron's fellow colonels include U.S. presidents, U.S. military officers, British royalty and government officials, astronauts, athletes, authors, film and television personalities, musicians, and religious leaders. Ron not only belongs in that group, but he also belongs and has earned his place in the Healthcare Supply Chain Leadership Hall of Fame. Accepting the award on Ron's behalf is his successor at the firm he created, RDA Healthcare Supply Chain Services, and who he has mentored for many years, Angie Ballard. Angie?
So despite my name badge, it's actually Haggard versus Ballard. Rand was just trying to get some additional credit here, I think. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. And on behalf of Ron and his loving wife, Susan, who is here with us tonight, as well as his son, Devin, and his wife Kim and his beloved granddaughter Haley and the RDA team. We just want to thank you so much, and the Bellwether League Foundation, for this honor and recognition of Ron's multiple accomplishments. I'm Angie Haggard, the CEO of RDA, and had the privilege of getting to know Ron for many years, so I will be brief, but want to at the same time share a few of Ron's accomplishments that I didn't know about till recently. And I thought, oh, we still do that today in healthcare. So retirement was a bad word for Ron. He did, every time the word was mentioned, he was shunned and discouraged the use of that word. As Rick so graciously mentioned, his career spanned 6 decades. I don't know of anyone else who was that long. But Ron had some great accomplishments over his years in both his military and his civilian service to our industry. So he rose to the highest accomplishment in his military career as a non-commissioned officer in the rank of Sergeant Major. And this designation, I found out recently, is only given to 1% of enlistees in the Army. So in his rank, Ron served as the Senior Medical Logistics NCO for the Medical Services Department. During his time there, he received 2 Bronze Stars for merit of service, and later served as a sergeant major responsible for all of the logistics operations at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. He then switched, that was his first retirement. Then he switched to his civilian career, where he started at St. Mary's Medical Center in Knoxville, Tennessee, and created one of the first card exchange programs, and in collaboration with Royal Industries, created a little thing that we call today custom packs that are in operation in many hospitals today and in use. So in addition to that, he was one of the first leaders that incorporated purchase services into the value analysis program and said it needs to be more than just supplies and new product introductions. And he also, near and dear to Randy's heart, he was a big fan of data and was a firm believer that accurate data could drive accurate decisions. And so in his org structure, he was one of the first leaders to create a role specifically for item master management, to person who gets up every morning and focuses specifically on data management. And Ron was 5S'ing and 6S'ing before any of us knew what those terms meant. He was all about order and cleanliness and making sure the operation was in right form and order. Even so much so, a little fun fact, during his time at Long Beach Memorial in California, despite an earthquake, after everyone was confirmed that they were okay, he wanted to make sure all the carts were within the line of the tape across the entire storeroom operation. So as we celebrate as RDA, this is actually our 10-year anniversary in 2024, and also accept this award. We remember Ron as a man of humility and of the highest ethical and integrity standards. For those of you that knew him and had the opportunity to know him, he made not only us a better person professionally, but also personally as well. So thank you, Bellwether League, and everyone who is recognizing Ron for this award this evening. His innovations helped to shape healthcare and the healthcare supply chain that we have today. And so it was a privilege and honor to know Ron. And it is our responsibility as supply chain leaders to continue carrying on his legacy and continue to make a difference, not only in healthcare supply chain, but in our own personal lives and the lives of others that we come across. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Now I'd like to introduce Gary Rakes, who's a Bellwether class of 2021, to come up and introduce our next Bellwether.
All right, thanks, Barbara. Good evening, everyone, and especially my fellow Bellwether honorees, and certainly all of our distinguished guests tonight. Tonight we get to recognize the best of the best, right? And I have the unique privilege of introducing someone who really fits that bill. Dave Hunter. He's a man that in my Bellwether Hall of Fame induction speech in 2021, I personally recognize as an outstanding mentor and leader who not only shaped and guided my professional career, but certainly served as an example to many others in our profession, as evidenced by his large tree of leaders who themselves have grown into influential executive supply chain leaders in major health systems across the country. So I could literally speak for hours about Dave's accomplishments, but in lieu of time, as we are told, we can always keep it under 2 minutes. I'm going to sort of change a little bit. And so instead of talking about Dave's accomplishments, you can read those and certainly on the website. I would like to really focus on what I think sets Dave apart and makes him truly deserving of this Hall of Fame induction. What really sets him apart is Dave is a man of immense integrity, character, virtue, humility, and high principles. While at Providence Health and Services, I had the wonderful pleasure of working directly for Dave, and I really saw firsthand Dave was just how selflessly he served and how compassionately he directed and how honorably he led, especially with the values of Providence. We all know those values. If you work at Providence, we have these values of a Providence promise of know me, care for me, ease my way. And that promise was very close to Dave's heart, and everything he did, especially how he conducted his supply chain services. I remember how he consistently served his caregivers with extreme grace and compassion, always putting the needs of those he served first, and how he led and conducted the entire enterprise supply chain. To sum up Dave, I found 2 quotes I would like to leave you with before we call Dave up here. The first is by Albert Einstein, and it says, "The value of a man should be seen in what he gives and not what he is able to receive." And then another one by George Bernard Shaw, "A gentleman is one who puts more into the world than he takes out." Dave is indeed a true gentleman and has been an inspiration not only to me and those he mentored and led, but to the entire supply chain profession, and especially those he expertly served by graciously filling the hands that heal. So please join me in giving Mr. Dave Hunter an extremely warm welcome as the newest 2024 Bellwether Supply Chain Hall of Fame inductee.
Sorry about that light, but it does reflect. Thank you, Gary, for those kind remarks. Before I share with you what I prepared, it is an honor to be inducted at the same time as Ron Denton. Ron and I met back in the late 80s. He was at Long Beach Memorial, and I was at Carondelet down Tucson. And talking with Susan beforehand, she reminded me that I had met her first time over there. Ron and I just hit it off very well. But sometimes, differences do attract each other. I mean, you heard a comment about his retirement. I've been retired for 9 years, and I'm not going back. And after listening to that panel today, I'm certainly not going back. And I leaned over to Jason. Jason and I had worked together during that panel. I said, Jason, you guys haven't fixed all that yet? You know, after 9 years. So anyway, I also want to thank the Bellwether Foundation for this wonderful award. When I was told I was nominated for it, I went on the website and took a look at the past awardees and realized that over 50 of the past awardees I have either met, known, worked with, or learned from during my career. So my career was nothing more than a capsulization of, you know, the best out there. And it was very helpful for me. As been shared before, healthcare is a people-caring business. Whether you're in direct patient care or in support functions such as supply chain, you soon realize it's a greater calling you have to serve others in a healing ministry. And I was blessed to work with many great organizations, primarily with Providence Health System out of Seattle, but also spent some time in Tucson with Carondelet Health System down there, and also with other organizations like ARM, VHA, I never worked with Vizient, VHA, and SMI, among many others, and also with many wonderful suppliers and distributors who are integral to the success of supply chain and to our healthcare organizations. When I entered healthcare, it was in early 1983, and healthcare was preparing to go through a major change, and hospitals had no idea how they're going to cope with it, because hospitals had traditionally been paid based on what they had earned or what they had spent, what it cost. And all of a sudden in October of '83, DRGs came out, diagnostic-related groupings. And I came out from another industry in manufacturing, and I was shocked. They were so concerned that all of a sudden they had to worry about a bottom line. Now, most of us in here know those were the good old days compared to what's going on today. I had a number of folks that really were integral to my career that I'd like to kind of share. Well, before I do that, you know, back in those days was pre-Excel, and we had the original spreadsheets, 11 by 17. Some of you may not know what those are, but let me know afterwards if you want me to share that in more detail. The first boss I had was at my hometown hospital, St. Peter Hospital in Olympia, and was the late Gary Weaver. Gary was a new director of materials. The hospital administrator brought him out of the clinical side, and so it was new to him. He brought me in, and he and I and a couple other supervisors he brought in and changing the whole department. We spent the years there learning about supply chain from many other people, learning what it was about and what it could be. And Gary was very instrumental. At that hospital, I also met an assistant administrator named Daryl Stewart, who then left and went down to Carondelet Hospital, St. Mary's in Tucson. And Daryl, for some reason, saw something in me, and he asked me to come down there and lead support services for this 3-hospital system. All of a sudden, I went from 20 FTEs to all of a sudden 225 FTEs, and one of them was dietary food services. Now, I know food services, but I didn't know that food services in hospitals, and that was a real learning curve from that standpoint. Then after a few years, I returned to Providence and was blessed to work with a CFO, a young CFO who came in by the name of Mike Butler. Mike Butler and I worked together for some 15 years. I either reported to him or worked with him in different other capacities. Mike knew supply chain, knew hospital finance and operations, and was integral into helping me do what we needed to do, first in a regional role, and then when he moved on to the system office as a CFO, he asked me to follow him there to the system office. And there I followed the late Larry Dixon, who was also previous Bellwether honoree. At that time, the CEO for the organization was Dr. John Koster. Dr. Koster was very supportive of supply chain, and it was important for Mike and I to know we had that support. And Dr. Koster had been the chief medical officer at VHA earlier in his career, so he knew supply chain and knew what it could be done. So the combination of those things really allowed us to do some things that organization had been looking for a number of years. During my career, probably the greatest challenge and yet greatest satisfaction was when in about 2008, we moved from a holding company to an operating company, which is now kind of the standard in which I think supply chain and large organizations operate. But it was new then. At the time that was happening, we were acquiring other small hospital systems and other independent systems. Same time we were developing, we call it the ones. We called it one source for bringing everybody together under one supply chain organization. We also did that while we were doing an $87 million Epic implementation. So all of a sudden we were moving to 35 hospitals and a $15 billion organization. As we talked about, we were building the plane as we flew. Now, we said that because Boeing's in Seattle. Little did we know that Boeing's had their issues from that standpoint. At that time, I had an experienced team that was paramount to our success. And in many ways, I felt like I was the conductor just leading the orchestra, because they truly were what got it done. My job, if anything, was dealing with some of the political landmines that were out there in moving to an operating company. One of these individuals was David Carlson, who handled our ProvSource contracting with VHA. And I just learned today that Dave recently retired. So, you know, get new information all the time. Next one was Tim Hagler, who was a 30-year supply chain veteran, who also recently retired this year, now living in South Carolina. So we had a great experienced team. Mike Minnick, who was a 30-year supply chain veteran from California. Mike retired the same time I did. Janet Say, 30-year supply chain veteran who's currently, and the only one still working, she was the younger one, as a chief supply officer at Alaska Native Regional Medical Center in Anchorage, Alaska. And then there was Keith Howells. Keith Howells was a retired 30-year executive with UPS. He'd been involved in helping build the UPS overnight air facility in Louisville, very experienced. He came in and helped build and operate our 200,000 square foot distribution operations center in Olympia, where we serviced hospitals in Southern Oregon to Portland, Seattle, and all the way to Western Montana with 5-day-a-week low unit of measure delivery. Excellent opportunity, and we really used Keith's expertise. Lastly was my friend Gary Rakes. Gary, again, is a 30-year veteran, supply chain veteran, including 20 years in the military. Gary's also retired just recently and seems to be enjoying that. So a lot of experience there, and it was, again, their experience that brought us through that. Lastly, I want to thank my wonderful wife, Janae, who supported me through all these years. She's been there to encourage me, to humble me when I needed it. And when the kids were younger, call me to remind me that the kids needed their dad at home. So I thank her for that very much. And I thank you for this wonderful award. And I'm humbled and appreciated that I was called to serve in such a wonderful industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Now I'd like to call Fred Kranz, Bellwether Class of 2020, to introduce our next Bellwether.
Good evening, folks. I'd like to make a couple of preliminary remarks. First, Randy wanted to know if you have any further score updates. No, he was asking. He said he was great. Second, for those of you who don't come to many of these events, I'm generally a very conservative dresser. But this is October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so I thought I would honor the month. Especially because I'm going to be introducing one of my longtime friends, Gail Kovacs, as an inductee. Third, at 78, I am probably the oldest inductor here tonight, and I want you to bear with my cognitive decline and I'm trying not to slur words. I want to make sure I don't reference any fictional characters while I'm talking, so I'm going to do my best. The one thing that as we as we talk about folks in the Bellwether League. This is an aspirational thing, and I think that those of you who are being honored tonight are seeing this. For those of us at the end of our careers, it represents something different than those that are the future famers and the AMR award winners. We work in a mission-driven industry. There ain't no one getting rich in supply chain compared to what people with the same skill sets could do in other industries. We're here because we want to be here. And so for us, one of the responsibilities we have is to identify and bring forward those people that we work with, that we know that would qualify and be appropriate for being recognized by this group. Which brings me to the third thing. I used to think that there were 6 things that could guarantee success. And those 6 things were if you were tall, white, bright, male, heterosexual, and connected. And I had 5 of those. You have to figure out which they are. But that wasn't the same for women. So all of you future famers and AMR award winners, Gail Kovacs is a woman that I've known for over 35 years. She spent her entire career in Northeast Ohio in the market there. She was a pioneer. Remember, when I started, and I've been in my 7th decade, I will have been in healthcare for 60 years. In July of next year, that's when I became a Navy corpsman. It wasn't supply chain, it was purchasing or it was whatever. And then Charles Housley invented material management, so we became materials managers. And finally, in the last few years, we've developed the term supply chain. There wasn't anything. Gail Kovacs had no book to work with. She had to figure it out. And she was working at some of the academic medical centers and the big places in Cleveland with clinicians. And when the individual community hospitals ruled, clinicians had leverage, and that leverage was a threat. They were usually on 2 or 3 or 4 different staffs, and if they didn't like what you were doing, they would say, I'm going to go over, boom, take my business there. And so Gail learned how to work with clinicians by building strong relationships and by working with data and by cultivating them to be someone that respected her. And in doing so, she became the first winner of the Paul Widman Award, which was given by the Greater Cleveland Hospital Association. Paul Widman was a 2013 inductee into the Bellwether League Hall of Fame. She just led a stellar career. And about, I guess it was a little over a year ago, when we were talking about nominees for 2024, I mentioned that to Rick, and I said, geez, you know, Gail Kovacs really deserves to be here. And Rick says, oh, Fred, you got to nominate her. Well, the problem, and this is one of the most difficult problems about the Bellwether League, and you folks need to understand this. You know, you don't just say a name and you're in. This is a very arduous process to get here. And the people that scope the folks out, except for me, I got through. I don't know how that happened. But the folks that are doing the vetting, they do a tremendous job. And so in 2023, I got a friend that I've known for 30 years, but I don't know the people that she's worked with. I don't know how to get all the information I need to get to be able to write a compelling story to get her into the Bellwether League, and fortunately we're able to do it. And that's why I'm telling you folks that it is, you know, take on the responsibility to identify some folks and start working on it, because it's worth it. I'm sure the inductees would appreciate it. So that being said, I would like to present my friend Gail Kovacs for induction into the class of 2024 Hall of Fame.
This is overwhelming. I never expected, with all the folks that I know that are in this league, that I would be among them. And, you know, there is a theme that runs through a lot of these presentations We're honored. We're taken by the honor that we're given. We feel collegiality with the people that have come before us and that are coming behind us. I had presentations that I had planned to go through, and I'm just going to go through this briefly because there are a lot of things that have already been spoken of. But first of all, I would like to thank folks that have been important in my career progress. My mom and dad certainly, who were deceased, but had, they were blue-collar factory workers and not much education, and they always had an intense work ethic. So that's what I grew up with. Excuse me, I'm going to put my glasses on here. My son Jeff, who wanted to be here tonight, has always been my motivator to succeed. I'm so proud of him and the work that he's doing and the wonderful family he's raised. My husband Klaus, who also could not be here tonight, for his ongoing support and the endurance that he has gone through with me, both dating and being married to me. My nominator, Fred, who is a vessel of enthusiasm and always keeps everybody on their toes. Thank you, Fred, for the honor. I'd like to also thank all the bosses who had faith in me. They're not here, but many of them took a chance on me to prove myself and that I could do it, or to fail, and that was certainly put in front of me as well. Also, all the frontline employees that I had, a number of folks that I've had a chance to talk to here have asked about my background, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, but what I'm really aware of is that the frontline staff, regardless of whether they're in construction and planning, maintenance, laundry, dietary, nurses' aides, they all come to work every day, and we pass and fail on what they're able to accomplish, and they were always willing to do what they needed to do. And of course, everyone in this room and in this league who have given me help, nudging and pushing when I needed it. And certainly the board for making this recognition available to all of us. So, as was mentioned, for those of us that are retired, this tends to be a reflective time in our lifestyle. And when I look back on all the things that happened to me, I can tell you that life has ways of directing you that you don't plan for. I started out as a biologist, and I loved doing research because it was an opportunity to find an answer to a problem. That was cool. I never aspired to be a nurse, but situation changed, and I ended up going to nursing school. That ultimately led me to a position being an infectious disease nurse way back when. And it was in the early days, and as I was telling somebody the other evening, this was a very precarious time because it was the first day on the job was the day they closed Bellevue Stratford for Legionnaire's disease. We didn't know what we were doing with it. I was one of the first people that reported MRSA to the CDC, who came up to do an investigation because we couldn't get it out of one of our units. And that was new for our organization. We had no idea how that was going to go. Right before I left the role, we were seeing patients on our unit that had Kaposi sarcoma. They were often gay, they were drug abusers, and 2 years later we found out the name for that was AIDS. And even at that point, we didn't know what that meant. That experience gave me the perpetual anxiety and contingency planning that perpetrated everything I did after that, because we never know what's coming, as we all found out during the COVID pandemic. My first boss as a nurse, I never aspired or even knew anything about materials management, but my first boss in healthcare was a retired military logistician. And I learned a heck of a lot from him and a heck of a lot of respect for those in service who had done what they did prior to even getting into that field. I also ended up having the opportunity to work with another associate and my next boss who came from the military. So I have great respect for those of you that have served for that reason as well as for your service in general. I never heard about materials management, but after I got into graduate school, there I was attending my first HCMMS meeting, and I met Dick Perrin, who seized the moment and recruited me to the board. Thank you, Dick. As a hospital administrator, which was another role I got into, I never aspired to be a vice president for nursing because I had gone to nursing school, and I sort of gave that up. But there it was put in my lap, and it sort of goes along the lines of what I heard Karen talk about, as Conway, that opportunities present themselves and you can't walk away from them. And that was one of the things that happened. Back to my boss in the military, my first boss in materials, we were talking today, and it was part of the presentation about the tools that we have and the computerization and the data that we have. Back in those days, there was one computer in a hospital. And my boss would take this green and white spreadsheet, pages. What he would do with it when they delivered it to him every day is he would measure it with a ruler. Today's a 3-inch day, tomorrow's a 5-inch day. And then he would decide, and he would throw it in the trash, and then he would decide what he was going to do, because there was no way to read it and analyze it. This is a true story. There was no way to read it and analyze it. There was no data summation. It was just a line listing of things that were ordered and things we were out of. So that was how we started. And this is what, when I talk about pioneering, we had very little tools. Somebody said something about handhelds today. I'm going, yeah, we didn't even know what handheld was. That word didn't exist. So we had to carve out things where we were able to work with that and still make a difference. And for me, I think it's been one of the most uplifting careers you could ever have, because I always had the opportunity to move, you know, what I learned from one area to another and be given another opportunity. I did have a chance to work with Ernst & Young for a couple of years, so even though I was based in Cleveland, I was in many parts of the country, and you have that opportunity to observe and teach and help people get to their roles. I have been fortunate enough that when my boss said he hired me because he needed me to speak clinical, because he was hiring me for CSR, that I was put in that role to translate, and that gave him credibility to get things done in the role. So I was able to parlay that into other things. I can say at this point that for those of you that are still working, God bless you, because we are really going to need you. There is, in our lifetime, for those of us that are retired, we have seen so much monumental change. It is astronomical, and it gets faster and faster, and we are going to depend on the rest of you to carry us through, because we need your expertise, we need your dedication, and we need your competence to be able to continue to do what we need to do to provide, not only for healthcare, but for, materials management and logistics in general. So with that, I'm going to say that the one other thing that I've learned that I'd like to share is that, some people say you shouldn't flip-flop, you don't change your opinion. Well, if something changes and it's drastic enough, you need to make a change, just as we did during COVID. I used to be a sailor. We used to have our own boat, other people in here, and the one thing that sort of parlays into that is when the winds change, if you want to keep going forward, you got to adjust the sails. So to all of you who are here tonight and have taken part in this and will continue to, thank you so much for everything you do and everything you will continue to do. And I really appreciate the honor of being part of this city. It is wonderful.
Great words of wisdom. Now I'm going to introduce Dick Perrin from the Bellwether class of 2014 to introduce our next Bellwether. Oh, and Christy.
Together go to tag team.
Okay, all right.
We may even ask Fred Grant to come up.
Oh, God. And we'll get Randy's house this morning.
Hi, I'm Chris Russell. I am the former publisher of Healthcare Purchasing News, which I miss every single day. and I'm so passionate about helping with the education process and the advocacy of healthcare proposals as far as pushing our groups into the C-suite and helping with all that. And this is Dick Perrin, who is also a Bellwether. I was 2017, he's 2014. And we're thrilled today to introduce Dr. Eugene Schneller into the esteemed group of Bellwethers. Dick and I are both Bellwethers. Dick was a founding board member with Jamie Kowalski, Tom Hughes, Rick Dean Barlow, and others, and was indicted, as I said, in 2014. I worked closely with all of these people and was inducted in 2017. Sorry, as I repeat myself, sorry that. And then we go to, I did write for notes. Dick did.
Well, we did it in concert with some other people here too, because it's always a committee effort to do these things. So thanks, Chris. It certainly is a special pleasure to be here with you and the other inductees and the people who we've known and worked with for many years. As you noted, Gene is a dear friend. He's a very special individual that Chris and I have been blessed to work with over the past 30 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. And I think about Gail, and when I first met Gail, when we first started working on stuff, it was 1982. And so I go back further than Fred does in terms of his relationship with Gail. Most of you are familiar, probably, with some of his numerous texts and articles, and we wanted to provide a few highlights of his most memorable contributions to the healthcare supply chain and his continuing efforts. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris and let her go through the next part.
Thank you. So, just a few of Gene's accomplishments. He founded the Health Sector Supply Chain Consortium, HSCRC, with Mark McKenna in 2004. Mark was the former president of Vizient, later served as a Bellwether League board member, and subsequently inducted as an honoree in the years following formation of HSCRC. They had many leading Fortune 500 members and academic medical centers facilitating research in cost, quality, and outcomes in healthcare.
So, this is all an effort to try to stay in tune with the 2-minute warnings we got from Rick back there, jumping up and down, waving his hands. But after Mark McKenna died, Gene, members of the Healthcare Supply Chain Research Consortium, and Joe Klein, who was Mark's executive administrator, some of you probably knew her before she retired, and they formed the Mark McKenna Charitable Foundation that has provided lectures by industry leaders on furthering performance of the healthcare supply chain and health policies for the last 10 years. And it's been very special to work with them and with the committee on that.
And both Dick and I and a number of other members here are all part of that same consortium, and we're still out there advocating and working with other healthcare supply chain organizations to advocate for encouraging graduates in healthcare supply chain and business degrees to come into healthcare versus going into other industries because of its rewarding possibilities. The McKenna Lecture is one of the things that we created. It is focused on health policy and countless research contributions to advance the role of supply as a strategic healthcare asset. In order to advance this role as a strategic healthcare asset, sorry, I edited that.
I did. I did because we were trying to do the 2 minutes, and I went through beforehand. It was 2 minutes and 21 seconds, and I got up here, and everybody's going like, okay. So there's a couple things we should say about this, along the way. The McKenna Lecture was most recently provided in conjunction with the IDN Summit in, of all places, Phoenix.
With ASU.
With ASU, and it was a great success. And the McKenna Lecture is done on a gratis basis because of the contributions of the people who have funded it over the years. And Gene and the committee have worked diligently to bring in really exceptional speakers. And you get a chance to go and attend that conference on Sunday afternoon with the IDN. This year it was free, and it will probably continue to be that way in the future. But it really focuses on healthcare policy and on the issues that contribute to cost and supply effectiveness and resource management across healthcare.
And I might mention Gene and his group at ASU and the consortium, as well as CAPS Research, now have over 20,000 graduate students that they've worked with through the years, and maybe that's a current number as well, Gene, but we'll let you talk about that.
Page 6. We're coming down to the end. I lost my last page. Gene continues to be a prolific writer about the healthcare supply chain and is now providing support, as you just said, to the ASU CAPS. And CAPS is a center for advanced procurement strategy, and it really is formed from a leading group of Fortune 500 companies, leading academic medical centers, and continues to contribute to benchmarking and performance measurement and optimizing different facets of the supply chain. And if you have a few minutes, we certainly recommend you take and look at CAPS at ASU. And Gene can provide some more on that because he just took over as the interim director for that. But really has numerous research topics that are just fascinating and very interesting. I stay awake at night and read this stuff.
Well, and on top of that, CAPS research really does have a lot of interesting studies that they open to all of you that are here and in your organizations. So we'd love to bring Gene up.
Great pleasure.
By the way, there's a donation fund.
Okay.
We have to do this in order. I heard that Daryl said there's one more, and there actually is one more.
And I might mention that Gene is joined tonight with his son, AJ, and his wife, lovely wife, Holly.
No, you got to be in the middle. You got to be in the middle. It's all yours. Being a man of few words, you won't have much to say.
First, Rick, thank you, and AJ and Ellen, I hope I don't embarrass you. I told Ellen that I was going to treat tonight as a confessional. And start out by really saying that I'm a refugee in supply chain. I'm a sociologist who started my career at Duke, James at Duke. I visited with Jane and others. And did my doctoral dissertation on doctors who became lawyers. A Jewish mother's dream or nightmare, depending on how you look at that. But really spent very little time doing supply chain work. I worked in my father's drugstore, working with McKesson. Anybody remember McKesson and Robbins? And I was filling the shelves for McKesson and Robbins, so I guess that's supply chain. Then I smuggled liquor between Canada and the United States, serving fraternity houses. That was a supply chain job. Well, you know, I teach global supply chain now, so you know my own experience. But I guess the other is at Duke, I was part of the first physician's assistant program and wrote the first book on physician's assistants, and that's a medical supply chain of healthcare human personnel. And personnel or supply chain, if you think about it. And we really don't study enough about personnel supply chains, and we need to do that. But to be more serious about this ambivalence here, I got a call one day from Joe Klein, who said, Gene, we want you to do some research for business innovation. And I said, Joe, I don't know anything about it. I told her all the things I just told you. And she said, well, you can learn about supply chain. And we went out and did a piece on the role of group purchasing, which is still around. Many of you may have read 2 versions of the role of group purchasing. And then we went to the National Science Foundation with my colleague Larry Smeltzer, because Larry was a supply chain guru. By the way, ASU had really the first program in the country that was supply chain. It was basically a structural solution to a human resource problem, We had people in operations management and economics and others, all who did supply chain, but didn't get together, didn't like each other. So we put them into a department called supply chain management and created one of the first in the country, and then started CAPS Research, which now for some reason I'm the executive director of, which has 60 Fortune 500 companies, all of this being 5.5 billion. And by the way, one of the things we've never understood is why supply chain always looks at its own supply chain in healthcare, why you don't learn from other industries. And I think the comment from Pepsi this morning was really appropriate because those are organizations, and we really need to do much more of that. That's really important. But then I came to this room today and I realized that so much what I've done has been standing basically on the shoulders of giants, and many of those giants are in the room. So Larry, and by the way, Larry Smeltzer, I was sitting with him at Starbucks one day and said, why don't we do anything in supply chain? He said, it's not interesting, healthcare supply chain. And he said, it's not interesting. And I said, why not? He had worked with Intel. Some of you had worked with Intel and Motorola. And he said, it's the only part of the economy that really doesn't treat its supplies as assets. I want you to think about that for just a second. He said, Intel knows what every chip is worth that's in a cabinet. And we went off to look at some healthcare organizations, and we say to the supply chain director, what's the value of what's in your stent cabinet? No idea. Okay, what's the expiration date of the things in your supply chain cabinet? No idea. So it started me on a 30-year odyssey, really, as a sociologist, treating healthcare supply chain as sort of an odyssey, as sort of something that was really odd, something that was strange. Went to visit Anand, one of the first people we went to visit at New York Presbyterian, and said to Anand, what's your biggest problem? He said, physicians. That was coming from a doctor. And I said to Anand, what's your second largest problem? He said, physicians. I go back and think, and it was so great to see him here, because I just knew he started me on this whole notion of us writing about the role of physicians as surrogate buyers. I mean, how many of you would send somebody to the supermarket with a card and not care what they spend, you know? And so we've written a lot about physician preference items and the management of those things from a sociological perspective. So for me, you're a strange research case. But all of that may be, we also really began to try to work with students because we really wanted to bring students into healthcare in an important way. And we wrote a book called The Strategic Management of the Healthcare Supply Chain. And Karen Conway is one of my co-authors on our new edition of that, if you haven't seen it. But I've had the pleasure of working with so many people here, and I won't mention them all. Chris and Dick talked about McKenna, but Nancy Pakizer is here. Nancy's one of our committee members, and important. And as we move forward, Jake is here. All of the folks that are just so important to the things I've done, the giants who pushed us forward, and we hopefully continue to do that. I ask you to join with us in things like the McKenna Lecture. We continue to work with major corporations on that. And my vision really has been to bring the best of learning across sectors into healthcare. And I think that's important to do. And I know it's really, and I've worked very closely with ARM. Some of my best friends are at ARM, and they're wonderful people. Worked with the folks at SMI. But I think it's time to really broaden out and see what others do. I run a new research center focused on resilience, and I know there's a really important focus on health supply chain resilience. But I can tell you the things that are going on in the auto industry, the things that are going on in the chip industry, make what we're doing look like it's not very important. And so we need to break out and do that. That's sort of my mission and my message. Everybody talked about retirement. My finance guy says I'm his only client trying not to retire. I don't get it, but I can tell you that my mission for the next 9 months is to find my successor for the Center for Advanced Purchasing Studies. We are the oldest center for purchasing studies in the country. If you want to send a resume, you can. I don't know what the job description will look like. But we need to bring healthcare into that to really make it much more productive. I'm so thankful to the Bellwether League and to Rick and to those who nominated me and who stood behind me. I see Amanda, who's just been a leader in thought, and so happy to be on the stage where she was tonight, and the support that I've had from Vizient and others, from Rand and your group. So thank you very much. If you want to know the importance of supply chain, Saturday night before Christmas, I broke my femur. Go to a emergency room, have a doctor come in and say, we're going to operate. And I said to him, what's your inventory? And he said to me, why do you ask? I said, well, is the rep going to be here? And he looked at me so strangely, He said, nobody ever asked those questions before. And I said, it's really important because I said, do you usually operate here? He said, no, this was at Scottsdale Shed. And he said, I usually operate someplace else. And I said to him, maybe we should wait till tomorrow when the rep should be here. And so if you don't think what you do is important, I can tell you it's wildly important when you're a patient sitting there and waiting for something to happen to you.
And now I'd like to call up Derek Stewart, Vice President, Data Analytics at Advent Health. Introduce our last but not least, Bellwether. Thank you.
That is okay. Honorable vote.
Perfect. It is my distinct honor to help celebrate the induction of Celeste West into the Bellwether Supply Chain Hall of Fame. This recognition is a testament to her remarkable career and the indelible mark she's left on our industry. Celeste's journey in supply chain management has been nothing short of extraordinary. Her unwavering commitment to her faith, her fairness, and her integrity has set a gold standard for us all. She has navigated the complexities of our field with persistence, a keen intellect, Rain Man-like recall, and a compassionate heart, ensuring that every decision was made with the utmost respect for all stakeholders involved. That's why Celeste is here today. But that's not why we are here today. We are here today because of her ability to inspire and uplift us. Her leadership style was and is a perfect blend of strength and empathy, fostering an environment where everyone feels valued and heard. We all have stories about how she touched our lives, whether through her mentorship, her unwavering support, endless parenting tips, or her infectious enthusiasm for the work that we do. Celeste's legacy is not just in the systems she has optimized or the efficiencies she has gained, but in the people she has empowered. She has shown us that success in supply chain management is not just about moving boxes from point A to point B, though that is very important, but about building relationships, nurturing talent, and creating a family-like culture of trust and collaboration. Almost everybody at that table there is over 50 years old, and she still calls us kiddos every time we see her. As we celebrate this well-deserved honor, let us also commit to carrying forward the values that Celeste embodies. Let us strive to be fair, to be kind, and to always put people first. Celeste, we're incredibly proud of you. Congratulations on this amazing achievement, and thank you for being a beacon of faith, excellence, and humanity in our industry. We are forever in your doubt. The kiddos.
I'm not sure how you followed that one, but thank you very much, guys. I am very honored, and I was extremely surprised to be nominated, but very honored to be a part of the Bellwether Foundation. I've known a number of you for a long time. I'll tell you that early on, I relate to Gail. I remember that when I started in what we called purchasing in those days, there were no systems. We did not have systems at all. And I remember that the Cardinal rep used to come in and fill out the order every week. That went away as soon as I got down there. But, not that I don't like you vendors, but that was not the right way. I was very fortunate. I really grew up in a home where my father did retail supply chain my whole life. So I knew, about docks and putting supplies on the shelf and purchasing and all those things. But I went to school and I thought I was going to be an accountant. And so when I first went to Advent Health, was Advent's health system then, I was in the accounting department. And one day, they found themselves with nobody in purchasing that knew what to do because they had a leader who fell and hurt her back. And so this was a really small hospital, and a receiving clerk that was off. And the only person downstairs working was the lady that did the mail and the distribution folks. And the FedEx guy was down there and he needed something. And I said, oh, never mind. I told my boss, she was the CFO, don't worry about it. I know this stuff. I'll go downstairs and help them. And I went down there and never went back. They kept there, and I love supply chain. For most of you who are doing this, you do it because you love it. It is not an easy job some days. It is not one, I can tell you sitting in the back of the room, I think I was telling Tom, the panel was great today, but I have to tell you, where's Karen? We've been trying to solve this. We got to get it solved. We've been talking about this my whole career. So we got to keep working on it. We got to fix it. You can't count what you can't see. And until we can get to the point where we can truly see what's on our shelves, right? We just really can't do anything about that process of understanding what it costs to do. I just want to take a couple of minutes to thank folks, especially these guys here. I was very fortunate to have a great team of folks. I worked for Advent Health my whole career in different jobs. And when I first started running around the country as we were growing, a couple of my very first employees are still sitting here and still work for us today. We went everywhere, acquiring folks and putting them on. By then we did have a system. And finally in 2004, I was very thankful to Brett Snyder, who was my boss for 17 years, and a couple of great CEOs over those times who listened. And I said, guys, we're 26 hospitals who do their own things. It's crazy. We got to fix this. And so we came together and we had a lot of stuff, but we couldn't see anything. So I hired a couple of really young kids. They were kids then. A couple of young kids who understood data and said, you got to help me figure out what we're doing. And I'm so glad to still have them. Ruben led our purchasing, and still doing the contracting group there. And they just, I retired, but it was okay because there's a really great team of folks who carry on and are taking a large system to where it needs to be. So I'm thankful to many of you. Carl and I were talking today. It's probably been 30 years since we first met. So many people, Tom and J.D. Kowalski, I remember early on telling me, hey, you got to to do something. You can't be 26 hospitals. You guys need to come together. You need a CSC, which they finally have. So many things that people taught us over the years. Medline was one of our first suppliers that I really sat down and had a conversation and said, guys, it's great for us to talk about price, but there's a lot of stuff we need to fix. How come pricing is always wrong? How come this, distribution is wrong? And we spent time with them and really watched their operations. They came and watched our operations. We have to become more like that. We have to be open with our suppliers. We need to understand what drives them and what drives us. When we do those kinds of things, I encourage those of you who are, younger in your careers, go outside of your hospital, get to understand what other people, the suppliers, the community, the folks you have to serve, what do they need and how do they do it? Because it's amazing when you open up doors and you look behind the curtain, a lot of our problems are the same. And so we just have to find ways to work together. And I appreciated your keynote address today because I think you're right on some of those things. So very, very honored to be a part of this group. They've done great things for many years, and thank you so much for that opportunity.
Before I call Rick back up to the podium, let's give everybody a round of So Rick, why don't you come up and get us through a couple more things? Appreciate it.
Much of what we do is channeled through our voluntary governing board of directors and our operational advisory council, and funded by dedicated, sustaining, and event sponsors and donors, because we all recognize how valuable this really is. Bellwether League Foundation continues to be blessed with 5 sustaining sponsors that have supported our mission and vision faithfully for 17 years. And I'd like to read those company names and have representatives, executives from those companies stand and be honored. At the founding level, we have 3, Owens & Minor, Premier, and Vizient. At the platinum level, Wingfoot Media, and at the silver level, Healthcare Purchasing News. So if you could stand and let me recognize you. We recognize 3 companies at the founding sustaining sponsorship level. And once again, that's Owens & Minor, Premier, and Vizient. I'll ask them to stand again. There are also 3 at the platinum level. Now, the platinum level and the founding level are at the same level. The difference is the platinum level starts at year 2. So founding starts at year 1. The platinums are GHX, Health Trust, and Wingfoot Media. We have 1 company at the gold sustaining sponsorship level, Logic Source. We have 11 companies at the silver sustaining sponsorship level. ASP Global, Capstone Health Alliance, GS1 US Healthcare, Healthcare Purchasing News, Healthcare Supply Chain Association, IDN Directory, Mayo Clinic, Medline, Omnicell, Omnichannel Health, and Sainage. Would you please rise for applause? We also recognize 10 healthcare organizations at the provider-centric bronze sustaining sponsorship level. We have Advent Health, Advocate Health, Alina, BJC, Freighter Theta Care, Geisinger, Northwestern, Oxner, Stanford, and Texas Health Resources. Give them a round of applause. And we also thank more than a dozen other event sponsors and donors. Please give them all a round of applause. Next, we're going to give you a little update about our collegiate capstone projects and scholarships. We have had 4 projects so far. 3 of them are listed up here. 2 were presented earlier today. 1 actually was a sequel to what was presented last year. And these projects, as I said earlier, they unite a student with an IDN or provider, and they explore a topic and then try and find workable solutions to come and present to all of you. So the 3 so far from the University of Michigan, University of Arkansas, and University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. We are looking for projects for 2025. So if you have any interested students or universities that you work with, please let them know. Also, we have 3 scholarships that we created this year. They are named after 3 bellwethers that have been inducted over a variety of years, each representing different themes. The committee, the Professional Development Committee, and the Philanthropy Committee met, and we have determined 3 winners, recipients of these scholarships, and we're going to announce them probably in about a month. So we look forward to that. All right, now we've come to the time of the event where we get to close. I'd like to thank you all for attending. Thanks to all of those that are going to be watching the video of not only this part of the event, but also the symposium earlier. We are honored to celebrate supply chain excellence. Once again, we congratulate the Future Famers class of 2024, the Ammer Honoree class of 2024, and the Bellwether class of 2024. And we also congratulate the 2024 Collegiate Capstone Project presenter and the scholarship winners to be named later. Give them all a round of applause. We also appreciate all of you. You serve as our nominators, our donors, sponsors, and our volunteers. You help make this happen for the good of the industry and profession. Since inception, we have held this event during the National Healthcare Supply Chain Week because we felt this was the optimal time and place to celebrate the profession and to celebrate the industry. Now, coincidentally, this year, this week happens to be Fire Prevention Week. So supply chain knows all about dealing with different types of fires. We invite all of you to nominate someone for the 2025 classes that will be honored at BLFIRE17 next fall, a year from now. The deadline is February 1st. We're going to be posting the 2025 nomination forms online very soon, but they are going to be very similar to what's up there right now for 2024. You can also watch a video on how to nominate and how our process works, as well as hear from some of the folks that are involved in the assessment process. So it'll give you a little bit of the color commentary for what goes on. I would invite all of you to check out the latest edition of Leaders and Luminaries on our website, and you can access past editions as well as our bi-monthly historical columns that's being named Flashbacks and Vintage Voice. We have podcasts and videos. Our first of our new fireside chats are up there, so by all means, visit the website. If you would like to recycle your badge, there is a receptacle in the back. You can put your badge in there, and we'll see just how old we can make these and carry these forward in our sustainability efforts. Now, a couple of things. Those of you who are bellwethers and have awards, these awards are very heavy, and so we have boxes in the back if you would like to take the boxes with you, if you would like us to ship the awards instead of carrying them on a plane. Come by and see us, and we'll work that out with you. Let's see. One other thing, just remember, I wanted to mention to you, if you park downstairs, come see me afterwards. And I would like to also mention kind of an informal get-together we're having. It's at the Easttown Bar and Grill at the Milwaukee Marriott. So if you can make it, we'd be glad to see you again. The nice thing is we're going to get out a little bit earlier today, and so you'll still be the folks probably that will close it down, but we'll have more time to spend there. All told, let's continue to salute the healthcare supply chain of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Travel safely, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.